When you encounter a new way of thinking or a new way of organizing the world, do you approach it like a scout might or like a soldier might? Do you explore what's there and try to figure out the way things are, or do you react by attacking or by defending your side and your current position? Now, this idea comes from Galef in a TEDx talk that I was watching that's called Why You Think You're Right Even When You're Wrong. And she exposes these two different kinds of mindsets. The mindset of the soldier that's there to attack or to defend and to ensure that our side or your side is the one that wins in the end. And this is the way that many of us approach what's going on in the world right now, particularly when you think of any of the kinds of divisions that are happening, regardless of what it is, what we see, whether you're on the right or the left in politics, whether you're approaching COVID, let's say, from a scientific or from an empathetic viewpoint, all of these things that, by the way, are false divisions. These are dichotomies or divisions into two things that are false. The world isn't so neatly divided into one versus the other, and yet that's the way we seem to approach things. And particularly when we see it as a soldier, or we see ourselves as having to defend our side from those bad other people that are trying to change what's ours, well, then we simply attack and we defend and we end up hurting one another and drawing lines in the sand that cannot be crossed. The scout mentality, on the other hand, is someone who is still just as firmly convinced of the rightness of their particular position, but they also simply want to go out and to scout the land to see what's really there. Sure, they hope that they find some information that might help to proceed or to further their cause, but most of all, they actually want to find out what's really going on. And the way that they might approach, or that mentality might approach different ideas or new things, is to seek to understand first what's actually being said, what's actually going on, and they might avoid the different kinds of labels that are being presented, or at least try to figure out what those labels actually mean by the people that are presenting a particular idea. And maybe seeing, sure, where those labels actually lead into some bad particular places, but also try to see ways in which those labels are simply shortcuts for maybe some good ideas. Because that's, after all labels are, is they're shortcuts for particular kinds of ways of thinking or of organizing the world. There's that one verse in that song, Make Me a Channel of Your Peace, that outlines this mentality really, really well, I think. It says, Master, grant that I might not seek to be consoled so much as to console, to be understood as much as to understand, and to be loved as to love with all my soul. See, it's a recognition that we, particularly those of us who follow the way of Jesus, those of us who are Christians, are called to be more like scouts than soldiers when we approach the world. We're to seek to understand, to try to figure out what's actually there, what people are actually going through, to resist the labels that other people assign for various places in order to dismiss them as others so that they can either attack them or defend themselves against those others. To remember that we are all one humanity, all made in the image of God. And yes, that image has been broken. And yes, the image is only renewed in Christ, but we still need to help other people see how God helps them by renewing the image that is broken in their lives. And the only way for us to really be able to show them and give them a sense of hope for renewal in their lives is to actually see and understand what is actually going on in their lives. So the next time you encounter something that is different from what you are used to, whether it be a new idea or a new perspective or a new argument or whatever, try to remember to approach it with a scout mentality rather than a soldier mentality. Don't immediately dig in, try to build some defenses and attack the other person's position, but first scout out that position. Seek out what is actually being said, what is actually happening there, so that then you can understand what's there, and maybe then you can more clearly articulate your position so that you could win the other person over. But most of all, may we all know and learn to understand and to recognize another person as made in the image of God and help them to see what God has in mind for them. As usual, if this is useful for you, I'd encourage you to like this video, to subscribe to the channel, and maybe comment on some of the ways in which you've experienced this soldier mentality or this scout mentality in your own life or maybe in others.